Okay guys, big changes just dropped. Remote raiding is heading back in the direction of what it once was. And there are some leaks. For some things, some global features, some remote features that we've been waiting for literally ever since remote raids pretty much. So a lot to discuss today. Welcome back to another YAP session. If you don't know, this is the Pokédaxy podcast where we choose a topic and then we just kind of yap about it. So today we're getting into it. We're getting into the remote raid change, which features remote raid changes. It features, you can do more remote raids. You can do Gigantamax and Dynamax remotely. You can do Shadow Raids remotely. A lot of things just heading. The way I think about it is like, it seems almost like Pokemon Go is heading back in the direction of what it once was in 2021. So really excited to get into it. I'll put a timestamp right here if you don't want to hear a little random spiel before we get into the actual juice of whatever the title and thumbnail of this video is. But we are here on Bait Island. I don't know if you can, I guess I'll like lift up the camera. You see that like water? Yeah, this is, I forget what these rapids are called. This is actually wet here, but this island is actually the first ever place I came with a DSLR camera and started to take photos. I like to this island right here, I like to give, I don't know, the thanks or whatever. Like, this is like where Pokédaxy, or I guess like my content creation, I don't know, like passion was born on this island. Right over there, I remember I was in high school, it was 2017, 2016, and me and my friend, we went and we took pictures of, I think it was this bridge or it was that bridge. And it kind of just sparked. I did a bunch of photography, and then like a year later, I started YouTube. I started recording my life, and then, you know, obviously 3 years later, I started Pokédaxy. So we're kind of at the birthplace of Dax Brûlé, of my content creation. So really cool to come back here. The rapids are flowing. People actually sometimes surf in these rapids, which is interesting. I know a lot of you guys watching from places around the world where they do a bunch of, where you have good waves. Australia, for one, which I was just there, but you know, the waves are not as good here in Ottawa, but people still try to surf in the rapids when they can, which is actually a pretty cool little thing. Maybe I'll do that. That'd be funny for a video. Pokédaxy surfs in the rapids. I probably wouldn't, the video would never get posted because I'd probably die. But anyway, I'm excited to chat in terms of how I've been doing. Good. Really, really excited for GoFest season, which is coming up. I have officially confirmed, for anyone wondering, I'm going to be at all three GoFests. I'm going to be in Osaka, I'm going to be in New Jersey, and I'm going to be in Paris. So if you're going to any of the GoFests, I will keep you updated on my socials where I'll be. If you ever see me, say hi, have a conversation. I don't care how long of a conversation. I always love, like literally the best part of this job is to actually be able to see the people who watch my videos. Because, you know, obviously, like, I don't know what you're doing right now. You might be like on your computer eating a bag of chips. If that's you, I just called you out. I'm kidding, I love chips. But it's really cool to actually see your guys' faces, put a face to the name or a face to the username. So Mr. Poopy Pants 855, you know, I'm gonna find out what your real name is. That was a terrible joke, I'm sorry. Anyway, excited to talk about what we're gonna talk about today. Let's get into it. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think, I don't wanna say I have hot takes, but I feel like I have thought out takes. So let's get into it. Let me go find a spot to sit down. Let's talk about all these changes coming to Pokemon Go. Okay, I am here. Let's get into it. So I've pulled up the blog post. Before we talk about the blog post, by the way, dude, they're doing this thing again. If you don't remember last year, you could propose, say yes to love at Paris GoFest to be engaged during GoFest. Should I do that? No, I'm kidding. I've only been dating Sarah a year. Anyway, let me know if you're proposing at GoFest. Honestly, that would actually make a pretty good YouTube video. That geese just chased the other one. Well, imagine, dude. Imagine like Mystic 7 proposes at GoFest. Or like, I don't know. Imagine Brandon Ton proposes to me. To Princess. That would be crazy. Never happening. But anyway, okay, let's get into it. I'm going to fully break down in depth what changes are happening, and then I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on it. Okay, update to Pokemon Go Shadow Raids and Max Battles. Trainers, prepare for a battle. This is always so corny reading this stuff. As you continue to tackle the biggest challenges in Pokemon Go with your battle team and local community, new opportunities to call for backup are coming. Gather with a global community of trainers and enjoy the thrill of battling, catching powerful Pokemon for years to come together. Years to come. Ooh, updates to Pokemon Go Shadow Raids and Max Battles. Shadow Raids, starting with the Crown Clash event taken over May 13th, which is, this video will be out by then, so these updates will be live, but they're not up. Like the event is on Wednesday. It's Monday. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Trainers can remotely participate with a remote pass in a shadow raid. So it's any shadow raid, legendary, 1-star, 2-star, 4-star if they have those. I don't know if we'll ever get 6-star mega shadow raids. Doubt that'll ever happen, but supposedly unlimited. This change will remain in effect after the conclusion of the event, so it is a permanent change, and shadow raids will count towards the daily limit of remote raids. So think of it like whether you do a regular raid or a shadow raid, it counts. Remote raid limits, starting on May 13th, 11 a.m., is at the same time. Yeah, same time. The daily remote raid limit will increase from 5 to 10. So it's going to be boosted up from 5 to 10, okay? So before we could do 5 a day, now we can do 10 a day, which means you can do 70 remote raids a week. That's a lot of remote raids. This maximum may even increase for special events. Most likely they're going to continue to do what they do as always. I hope this is close enough to me, but where they normally, during, I think it's usually the Go Tour events, the Wild Area event, and the Go Fest global events, always get unlimited remote raids for that weekend. So we usually get like 6 days a year where there's unlimited remote raids, and it's usually for the big events. That's going to stay. Max Battles, starting on May 19th, 11 a.m., before Gigantamax Max Battle Day. So that's not started yet, I do believe. That's going to be later. It's going to be like, depending on when you're watching the video, I don't even know when this video. This video's dropping Friday, so whatever May 19th is from Friday. Trainers will be able to join max battles remotely by using a remote pass and the usual number of max particles. The ability to join max battles remotely will remain in effect after the conclusion of the event. Trainers who participate in max battles in person will earn more Premier Balls and XP than before, and the limit of max particles trainers can hold will increase from 1,000 to 1,500. This maximum may be increased for special events. Okay, lot to unpack here. First of all, you can remote join max battles, whether that's Dynamax, Gigant, any max man. You can remotely join them. That is huge, and that is something a lot of people have been saying they wanted, especially for rural players, because a lot of rural players can't even touch Gigantamax because it's like 40-person lobbies. You need so many people. But now you can just remote in to your local city. You can even remote in to max battles, supposedly remote into max battles. They haven't really broken down, I guess, how the invite system is going to work, but my guess it's going to be the same as remote passes. But you could join like max battles in Australia early, which is cool, which is really cool, especially because like it's like remote, it's like raids. How if a raid boss comes out in Australia, you can remote raid to get it like before the day before. Now everybody will be able to remote raid into Australia or New Zealand early to join those battles. Now, it is going to cost you both max particles, the same amount. So like I think a Gigantamax is it 1,000? Is it 800? I think it's 800. Or that's a legendary. I'm not sure how much a Gigantamax is, but you also need to use a remote pass. So you need to use max particles and a remote pass. So it's actually pretty expensive. That is one thing. It is, and this is one thing we're going to talk about. Like this stuff is still very expensive to do, but it is expensive to do. However, it is still possible to do, which is nice. I have been told that if you do not successfully defeat the Gigantamax boss, your max particles will not be used. If you don't know how max battles work, if you join a max battle, you don't defeat it, your max particles don't get used until you've defeated that boss. However, if you go into a Gigantamax battle and you fail, your max particles won't be used, but your remote pass will be used. Now, you can reattempt that max battle with the same remote pass, which is nice, before it expires. So you can do it a couple times, but your pass is still gone, even if you fail. So that is one thing that's a little bit annoying. I hope they do end up fixing that. That's just like, honestly, something that I think should be done for raids as a whole is like, unless you defeat the raid boss, your pass doesn't get used because it's just kind of dumb to waste a pass, fail. I guess it like creates some sort of stakes, but I do think that is kind of dumb. So you're using kind of double the amount of resources, a raid pass and max particles, to do the battle, and your max particles aren't used, but if you fail, your remote pass is used. Or the second the battle starts, your remote pass is used. So anyway, so this is going to stay in effect, so you can do this forever. Now, trainers who participate in max battles in person will earn more Premier Balls and XP than before. First of all, this is huge. Premier Balls, obviously great. If you attend in person, you're going to get more balls, so it's going to be easier to catch the raid boss. And this is something I always say, like, if they're going to be doing this remote thing, I'll get more into my idea, my thoughts later, but if they're going to do, like, remote and global at the same time, there needs to be a reason on why you would rather do in person. Like, pros to going outside. Because again, it's easier to just sit on your couch and do a max battle. So what's the value in going and doing it in person? And this is the value here. More Premier Balls and more XP from before. I do believe you get 25,000 XP every time you do a max battle. Oh my God. I'm speaking too fast. I need some water right now. Look at geese and the seagull behind me. Anyway, 25,000 XP. You can use Lucky Egg, 50,000 XP. You can pay 200 coins to double your rewards, 100,000 XP. Depending on how much they increase this, you could be getting like 50,000 XP for doing an in-person max battle. That's 100,000 XP per max battle. What is this seagull doing right now? And then if you pay the 200 coins to double your rewards, 200,000 XP for one Dynamax battle. It could be the best XP grinding method in Pokemon Go. Like flat hands down. Obviously you gotta spend money on max particles and on doubling the rewards, but it could become the most pay to level up thing in the game. Depending on how much they increase this. So we'll have to find out how much that is. For the Gigantamax, the regular Dynamax, it'll be nice, but you don't get too much XP for that anyway. Okay, and your max particle limit is being increased to 1,500. That is really, really nice. That is something that we've wanted for a while. If you don't, you can hold up to 1,000 max particles. Technically like 12,000 because it's like a soft cap, so you can like do a couple strategies. If you watch my tips videos on Dynamax, you'll understand those. But you can increase it to 1,500. So now you can hold 1,500 max particles. You're not going to get more max particles on the daily. I do believe what is it, 800 per day? I think there's still a limit, but you can hold more, which is nice. Really, really good. I don't even see why there's a limit on how much you can hold, but anyway, we take this. Now, it does say here the remote raid limit will be increased from 20 on Saturday, May 24th, 5 p.m. So that, I believe, is for is this for Gigantamax Max Battle Weekend? I think so. Potentially for Gigantamax Max Battle Weekend, you can do 20 Gigantamax Machamps. And by the way, this is something to note, like when the remote raid pass limit gets increased, the max battle limit gets increased. So for example, during Global Go Fest, you can do unlimited remote Gigantamax battles as long as you spend money on remote passes and on max particles. Take that what you will. Again, a lot of people watching this video, you're not going to be spending that much money and doing that many battles, but still, theoretically, we can be doing like 100 Gigantamax battles in a day remotely from your couch if you have the money. But that's only during Global Go Fest or during events when they boost the remote raid limit. Anyway, that is it. A little web store bundle at the shop, but that is pretty much all the changes going down. Now, there is other changes going down here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up here. Now, where is it? The Pokemon group, if you don't know, is the new data miners. We used to have the Pokemoners. They ended up stopping because they just didn't really enjoy the game anymore. I feel like this is way too low on me. So now the Pokemoners data mine, and what they were able to find in the leak files, I'm going to say this right now, just because this was leaked doesn't mean it's confirmed coming. Usually the leaks are correct, and usually they lead to something. This feature I'm about to talk about could be coming in a year from now, 2 years. Stuff takes a long time in development, could never come. But there's been a lot of things that have been leaked on this page that we have seen drop a while after. For example, they're like leaking hyper training right now, which is the IV boosting thing. We talked about it in another video. That most likely is going to come during Global Go Fest. I could definitely see it coming, or sorry, just Go Fest. So anyway, they also actually showed, spoilers if you don't want to see this, but they showed the Volcanion encounter for Go Fest this year, which is actually pretty sick. Check it out. It just appears like that. That's fire. Anyway, you'll get to see that later. So anyway, scrolling down here, where is it? Wonder Trade coming. Okay, so they leaked remote trades. There are 2 new values in the Pokemon settings. Marked remote tradable in escrow. Let me see what we find from this, and then you scroll up a little bit, and then they say, is Wonder Trading coming? New setting has been added to propose Pokemon for trade and fetch a list of tradable Pokemon from other players. It's unclear exactly how this will work, but it seems some Pokemon may not be legible for this trade type. So you have propose remote trade, cancel remote trade, mark remote tradable, and get remote tradable from other players. So pretty much a lot of just text being added to Pokemon Go, to the settings that link to remote trades. Now, a couple things we can take from this. First of all, it says that not every single Pokemon will be marked for remote trade. This is something that I 100% want them to do, because I do not think you should be able to remote trade regional Pokemon. Yes, There has been raid days in the past where regional Pokemon, you could remote raid them, get them from anywhere, but I do not think you should be able to sit at home and be like, I want a Relicanth in my Pokedex, and then just call up your friend from New Zealand and get it to trade. So I'd like the idea of this. Remote trades, I'm a huge fan of. I think it's something that we should definitely get into Pokemon Go. I'll get more into depth, but I do really like that there is only certain Pokemon that can be remote traded, and especially when I say certain Pokemon, the only thing I hope that is capped is that you cannot trade regional Pokemon. And I would think that most people here could agree with that. The whole point of regional Pokemon is they're exclusive to regions. It gives people a reason to travel and excitement when you travel in Pokemon Go to go to other places because you can get these exclusive regionals. And I think adding remote trading where you could just remotely trade regionals is going to completely take away from that. And just the core and what makes Pokemon Go special, which I think is part of it, is the travel. You know what I mean? So anyway, remote trades, that has been added. Now, with all this said, what is my opinion on all of this? Do I think this is good for Pokemon Go, or do I think this is bad? Well, I do think I have a lot of ideas of pros and of cons of this, and then I have an overall opinion. So I'm going to go change spot. We're going to go find a new place to sit because I'm getting attacked by seagulls right now. And let's continue to talk about this. I also just need to awkwardly cover the camera for a cool transition. Okay guys, I have a really, really exciting opportunity. We are going back to Japan. If you've been enjoying the YAP sessions, I think this would be an amazing opportunity for you because Pokédaxy Japan trip version 2 is happening. Specifically, November 9th to November 15th, we're gonna be in Kyoto and Osaka. We just recently actually dropped a video of the first Japan trip. If you haven't seen it, it's called like 7 Days in Japan, Pokemon Go in Japan. Highly recommend you watch it. It's gonna give you a good idea of what to expect, but this is honestly a really, really fun trip, and I had so much fun on the first one, and I really wanna share this opportunity with anybody who's wanted to go to Japan, is a little bit scared to go to Japan, because we're gonna be in a group, so there's gonna be like 23, 24 other trainers with us. Everybody plays Pokemon Go. We can all add each other before the trip. We can become lucky friends. We can go ahead and trade. So overall, definitely worth considering. And also, one thing I'm gonna say is like, the trip is in November. Last year, the Wild Area event was in Fukuoka in Japan in November. So if you come on this trip, there could be a chance that they host another Wild Area event and you can go to an in-person event in Japan. So highly recommend you consider it. If you have any questions, DM me at Pokédaxy. I'll leave the link below if you want to learn more details. And yeah, hopefully we see you in Japan in November. Okay, back to the app session. Okay, let's talk about the pros and the cons of all these changes that are coming to Pokemon Go. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, Dax, this camera's crooked. Let me fix that. A lot of people are going to be like, Dax, how can you say there's pros and the cons? And this is the first thing I'm going to say here, right here. A lot of people are going to be like, a lot of people have been like, you know, Dax, you're showing too much love to Niantic, blah, 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 when you say there's pros and cons, or when you argue points that just make no sense. Keep an open mind. And this is why I do this, is because I feel like there is a vacuum. I don't want to say a hate vacuum, but like everybody reads these comments online. This is all bad, 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 and they don't form their own opinions on something. So I'm always trying to see if I can be devil's advocate and see what the cons of this situation are. You know, why could this be a bad thing? So anyway, I just want to say keep an open mind. I do think there is cons to these changes as well as pros. Anyway, let's get into it. Pros. First of all, accessibility is an amazing thing. And I was one for never nerfing the remote raids. I was one who sat there and I was like, hey, do not nerf the remote raids. This is something that is amazing for the game because it brings in so many players. First of all, Pokemon Go has never been as big as it was when remote raids were unlimited. So many people were coming back, people who couldn't play Pokemon Go at all before, people who were stuck at home, who were in wheelchairs, who were stuck in rural communities, could access all these features that they do not have access to. And this was a huge pro because the more people who play Pokemon Go, my mic is upside down. The more people who play Pokemon Go, the more money the game makes. And the more money the game makes, the more money they can invest into features. And then the more money they invest in features, overall the game just gets better. So adding remote raids, increasing it to 10 is going to help accessibility for rural trainers, disabled trainers, all this stuff. And same thing with wonder trades. It's going to help people in remote areas to go ahead and get access to trading with people that they don't have access to normally. So it's absolutely amazing. It supports also people with like families. This is something that I got this comment so much, but like people would always say that, or not even say, but like they straight up have kids they have to take care of after school, so they can't go to raid hour. They can't go and just spend their 6 to 7 p.m. at raid hour. So instead they have to be at home making sure their kid's doing homework. And while their kid's doing homework, they can do a remote raid or two. And like, granted, you can do that still. You know, you can do your 5 remote raids during raid hour, but the more you can do, the better. You know what I mean? The more you can do, the better. So not everyone can go to every event. This is actually even just ties into my YAP session from, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, where I was talking about how there's too many events. This is amazing. You don't have to go to every event. You can still play every event, but you can play it on your own time. You can play it from your own area, from your own comfort of your own home. And like, and it's just like, overall, it's just a good, like, overall, the baseline is just going to bring more people playing Pokemon Go. And the more people who play Pokemon Go, the more money the game makes. And you know, at the end of the day, you want the game to be big. You want the game to grow. And that's how you're really going to make a mark and affect the most amount of people, is if the most amount of people interact with your game. And the more, we've seen it during the pandemic, the more accessible it is, I guess is the best way to say it, the more people are going to download it and play the game. Also, it lets you connect with people in a way that local communities don't. So this is one thing I'm going to say, and this is a thought I've had, but like, you have two communities. This is the whole concept, but you have two communities. You have your global community, which is people from all around the world. You know, I have friends in different, like, I have friends in Paris. I have friends like Zoe, who's in Australia right now. Like, that's my global community. Then you have your local community, those people who are around you, you know, who live in your local area and you guys go to events with very often. Now, I don't like to say this, but I kind of relate your local community versus your global community to like friends and family. You know what I mean? So like, you don't choose your family. You know, you're born into your family. You don't choose your local community. Maybe you do. You can obviously move to different cities, but you go to an event, the people who are going to be there are kind of already set to be there, right? They're people who live in the area. They're going to be there. You don't have much control over that. However, the global community is huge, and those are your friends. Those are people that you can choose to interact with or not. I don't have to interact with Zoe in Australia if I didn't like Zoe. Love her. Hopefully her child is going great. This is like a 24-year-old trying to interact with a pregnant woman. Anyway, what was I saying? I don't have to be friends with Zoe. If I don't want to be friends with Zoe, I don't have to message her ever. Nothing would change, right? So your global community, you can choose. And so I think there's a lot of value in a global community in Pokemon Go, because these are people that you've gone out of your way to choose to be friends with. You've chosen to send them gifts. You've chosen to invite them to raids. You've chosen to interact with them on Campfire, even if you don't really have to. You've chosen to send them or pin their gifts for scatterbugs. You know what I mean? So like, there is value in the global community and these people, and it creates social connectivity by having more ways and more means to interact with this global community. Because like, look, I'm not going to say that interacting with the local community is bad. I think local community is amazing. However, I have heard horror stories where people are like, I'm just not accepted by my local community, or I don't like the people there. I don't like their values. So then they're like left like, okay, am I just going to play Pokemon Go alone all the time? Which maybe some people will, but a lot of people will just be like, I'm just going to quit Pokemon Go. I don't get a lot of value because there's just nobody in my local area I can really vibe with and mesh with and play with. But if there's more support for the global things, these people are going to play the game longer, because they're going to be like, I can still play the game and have a lot of fun because I can connect with my friends around the world. So overall, I think it's amazing. It's also just going to extend the life of the game longevity. We're going to get global features are just going to create just more ways to interact with the game. And the more ways you interact with the game, the more you're going to be able to play the game, and the more just fun you're going to have playing the game. Really that basis. And then also, I think just overall a hype and excitement. Like, again, going back to the global versus local debate, but like, there is you don't really interact with your local community on the internet, I guess. You kind of interact with them in person more. I guess there are some people who interact, but like, when a new event drops on Twitter, people are hyped on Twitter. People are posting, oh my God, let's go. And they're replying to each other's comments. Oh my God, let's go. Or I drop a tips video or an event details video, or Mystic 7, or I don't know, Brandon Ton, or whoever. When they drop those videos, people are hyped and interacting, and that's global community. That's a hype and a community energy that's being pulled from the global community. So again, the pros is that we are supporting the global community. Now, why do I think Niantic is doing this? And this is something I've heard, but like the last 3 years, since they nerfed Remote Raid Pass, Niantic have been local. They dropped Dynamax battles. They dropped in-person shadow raids. They dropped, what other features are local only? Roots, party play, all these features that you have to be close to somebody to play with. However, what I've noticed is recently there's been a little shift towards global features. And I'm not going to say, the one thing that always interests me about Niantic is like how they're like, their message and their motto is, I think there is a little hypocrisy here because their message and their motto is to connect trainers in the real world. However, recently I've noticed a lot of just changes being made towards in-person interactions, I guess. You have Scatterbug, pinning gifts, shiny Scatterbug. That is a completely global feature. You need, to get all the forms of Scatterbug, you need friends from around the world. Remote Raid Passes, the fact that Remote Raid Passes haven't been removed as a whole, obviously Niantic knows that if they do that, the game would probably die, and they still need money, but also at the same time, it feels so hypocritical, right? Because if your idea is in-person only and you're dropping all these features for in-person, why is Remote Raid Passes a thing? But I do believe Niantic might have switched their mindset recently because this change, Remote Raids getting added and leaked, Scatterbug, there's been features recently that have been just getting added to Pokemon Go that have just been more for the global community. So overall, I do hope they continue down this path, and there's a lot of pros in interacting and supporting the global community. Again, this is the whole debate. This debate isn't should they nerf Remote Raid Passes or not. The whole debate here is local community versus global community. That's literally what we're talking about. So let's get into it. Let's get into the cons now. And I do believe there are some cons for these changes. Cons that I don't think are going to destroy the game, but cons that could, I guess, change the way the game is played. Again, in a better way, in a worse way, it's hard to tell. Only time will tell. I'm burning up here. I'm going to go find another seat, and let's talk about some cons. Okay, so I just realized that I did not press record, and I just yapped fully about all the cons of this situation. So I'm going to repeat them because, well, that's annoying. But anyway, I guess that's what you get sometimes for yapping too much. Okay. Look, the pros are there. Obviously, there's a lot of pros to the situation, but I do believe we have to keep an open mind and keep an eye on, like, what are the cons of this situation? What could be, how could, I don't want to say disastrous, but how could this be negative for the game? Now, again, going back to it, we have a local community and we have a global community. Can these both be alive at the same time? That is the question that we are really, really answering here. A lot of people, and I'm gonna shout out community ambassadors here, have been working their butt off for the past 3 years to get people in these global communities to come out to these meetups and to play Pokemon Go and to enjoy Pokemon Go all together. They've been working really, really hard to make this happen. So I would think that these changes, they wouldn't be the most happy for, because how it works, at least how I think it works, is that people, humans, as like, the nature of humans is that we want to take the path of least resistance. And getting in your car, going to a meetup, driving, spending gas money, all that stuff, to then attend a meetup at a certain point in time is a lot harder to do than sitting on your couch and just remotely joining an event. So overall, I do think something on my hand. I do think that community ambassadors are not going to be happy with this, because by having 10 remote raids every single day, or people can remote raid Gigantamax, some people who might have gone to the meetup normally are now going to be like, well, no, I can just sit on my couch, watch Inception, eat a bag of chips, and just remote raid Gigantamax Machamp. Why would I go out? Why would I spend my time to do this? Now, there's obviously other pros to going to these meetups, but overall, it's going to pull these communities, I don't want to say apart, but less and less people are going to start going to these meetups. And then maybe even at one point, it might ruin the meetups, because you know, you still need 40 people, or like a lot of people, for a Gigantamax boss. And if you can't even pull in like 15 people to your meetup, the people who are still going to the meetups might not even be able to like enjoy the meetup. So you're gonna see a dilution of the local community because less and less players are gonna go. Now, I do believe personally in a Pokemon Go, like, well, actually I'll get into that later, but like, it is hard to say, like, is this actually how it's going to work? Like, is it that the local community is going to stop going and they're going to become remote communities? Or is it going to be the people who could never go to the local community meetups are going to start joining remotely? Like, is it instead of a pull, instead of a minus of players and a transition of players from local to global or local to remote, instead we're going to see local players stay, and then you're going to see, and in addition, you're going to see people who are in rural areas or disabled or who can't access these features are going to like start to join these features, I guess. So like, again, it's a toss-up in the air, but overall a con that I could definitely see is all the work that these community ambassadors have been doing for the past year get pulled away and less and less people go ahead and join. Now also, a big reason on why remote raids were actually changed in the first place, or I guess you could say like why remote raids were nerfed all the way back to 5 was because it was ruining the rarity of Pokemon. Now, I just want to say it's like, Gigantamax Pokemon are rare. We cannot argue the fact that they are not rare. To get a Gigantamax Pokemon, you have to go to a meetup, you have to be in person, you have to find 20 to 40 players, you have to use a strategy to take on a Gigantamax boss. Like, it's not easy to go ahead and take it down. And then the rates for Gigantamax is like 1 in 64. I'm actually paranoid that this is not recording, but the rates for Gigantamax Pokemon are like 1 in 64. So the rates are not good by any means. Is my audio too loud too? No, it's good, okay. So, like, Gigantamax Pokemon are rare, but now the fact that you can actually just remote raid a Gigantamax boss, does that not ruin the rarity of Gigantamax Pokemon? And yes, you can only do 10 a day, but like, I don't know, I look at Fleece King's account, he probably has over 100 shiny Rayquazas, and the reason he has that is because when remote raids were unlimited and a Rayquaza event came out, he could just do, 100 remote raids in a day, 200 remote raids in a day. He gets 5 shiny Rayquazas a day, and then he just has a bunch of shiny Rayquazas. You know what I mean? Like, the value of a shiny legendary really, really dropped once remote raids became a thing, and we could end up seeing the same thing with Gigantamax bosses. Now, I do want to say this, everything does lose rarity at one point in Pokemon Go, so this is kind of almost a non-issue because as a Pokemon is in the game for longer, it's just naturally going to lose its rarity because, like, more people are going to get it. You know what I mean? So overall, this is a little bit of a non-issue, something you might not really be able to avoid, but yes, it might ruin the rarity of Pokemon. There are still rare Pokemon in Pokemon Go. Things like Shiny Larvesta, I think, is still insanely rare. But, Gigantamax Pokemon, gonna lose rarity because of this feature. Also, it does incentivize pay to win. Now, when I say pay to win, like, we did have a whole conversation about this. I did make a whole YAP session, like, is Pokemon Go really pay to win? And I kind of landed on the fact that it's like pay to accelerate. It's pay to get more out of, but you don't really win because it's like a collector's game almost. Like, I guess you could win in the Master League, but you can't really use Gigantamax in the Master League. I guess you could use like Shadow Raids in the Master League, but Shadow Legendaries. But overall, it is going to make the game more pay to win. Now, something I did not say also that is a huge, huge con that we have to mention right now. Yes, remote raids are being increased to 10. However, the price of remote raids is staying the same. It is staying the same, which is really, really frustrating. I think, honestly, one of the biggest reasons people don't remote raid anymore is actually not because of the limit. It's actually because of the price. It's still like 495 coins for 3 passes. You can hold 3 passes. Technically, you can hold 5 if you have 2 and you buy 3, but you still have to spend a bunch of money. And also, now you're going to have to buy max particles. So, like, overall, this feature is really just incentivizing pay to win. Now, that's not to say that you can't take advantage of this without paying, but again, you're going to have a lot less friction if you just sit at home and you bang out 10 Gigantamax battles and you just spend a bunch of money. So the whales just spend a bunch of money versus somebody who goes to an in-person meetup. You have to coordinate with people. You can't just like hop into a lobby. You guys have to have a correct strategy. You're not a freeloader. As a remote raider, I feel like a freeloader where I'm just joining in to get the rewards but not really put in the work, if that makes sense. So it's going to incentivize that thing. Now, one thing I will say, like, the business of Niantic, I don't think this is a bad thing because the business of Niantic is like, the reason we're able to play Pokemon Go and enjoy the game is because some people pay for the game and pay Niantic. You know what I mean? So like, naturally they are a business, and I don't think we'll ever really be able to get away from the fact that this is a free-to-play game, but you can pay to accelerate. That just might be something that's just unavoidable and just part of the life cycle of Pokemon Go. But it is still frustrating because, like, if you go in person, you spend all this time and this effort, are you being compensated correctly versus somebody who's just sitting at home and just enjoying and taking advantage of stuff. So overall, that is it. Also, in terms of the remote trade feature, I guess one thing we can say is like it will also ruin the rarity of Pokemon across the board. You know what I mean? So like obviously a Pokemon is Pokemon are rare, but the fact that now you could just like be at home and be like, I want a clone Charizard, and then you just message your friend and they trade you a clone Charizard, it's gonna ruin the rarity of clone Charizard because you don't have to do the work, you don't have to find the person who has it in your local area, meet up, find a time, all that stuff. Now, that is a little bit annoying. But one thing I will say is most likely they are going to cap this. So it's not going to fully ruin the rarity of Pokemon because I do believe like a lot of people here watching this video, you might think like if they add remote trading, you could do like 100 remote trades a day. Knowing Niantic, knowing Scopely, it's most likely going to be like capped to 1 or 2 a day, which is still fine because a lot of people just want remote trading so they can do remote lucky trades with their friends around the world. Maybe it's like 1 a week. It's fine. We want it. But it will still potentially ruin the rarity of Pokemon. But I am fine with that because I do believe like if they do add remote trading, why would you ever trade locally, right? Why would you ever trade locally? And I do believe the value in trading locally is that you're going to be able to do more trades versus remote trading. You'll be able to do 1, which is nice, but you can't just like sit there and mirror trade 100 Gibbles to try to get 100 Gibble. Also, a random side note when I think about remote trading is the fact that the black, I made a video about this a while back, but there's a black market where people will buy Pokemon and spoofers will teleport to them and trade them that Pokemon. Just gonna make it easier for these people to do this. Like I could see an uptick in Pokemon being bought and sold on eBay because now you could be like, you know, anybody can open a store and be like, I'll trade you any Pokemon in my account, pay me $5. Now, first of all, don't do this. Never buy a Pokemon or sell a Pokemon on eBay because that Pokemon, first of all, it's against terms of service, and if Niantic finds out, they're just going to take that Pokemon from you and you're just going to have wasted your money. So don't do that, but, you know, at the end of the day, it is an unregulated thing, and it's going to happen no matter if I say don't do it or not. So it's just going to make it easier for those people to do that. So overall, in my opinion, those are some of the cons. I'm really upset that they didn't decrease the remote raid pass limit, or sorry, the price. That is a little bit frustrating. But I do have some thoughts. Some overall thoughts on if I think this is good for the game, if this is bad for the game. So I'm gonna go find a new spot to sit, then we're gonna finally discuss what I think about it. Okay, I didn't really move that much. I moved a little bit, but my nose is starting to get stuffy. Okay, is this bad for the game? Is this good for the game? Overall, I think this is good for the game, in my opinion. However, I do think that if they do go in this direction too much, I think it could be bad. Now, first of all, let me just lay this out there. It all comes down to the question, can you have a local community and a global community at the same time? Now, in my opinion, I do not think you can have both communities at the same time. And I think we've seen this with COVID. Might not be the best example, but during COVID, when remote raids were unlimited and they were a super cheap price, nobody was going to meetups. Nobody was going to meetups. The meetups downtown in Ottawa, you got 3 or 4 trainers. I would go play with my friends, but most of the time, like, there wouldn't be that many people out there. So I think, like, obviously that's just one example. I do think that if there is a situation where you can be at home and don't have a lot of friction to join a remote raid, why would you come in person? So I don't think that both communities can live at the same time. Saying this, I believe in a Pokemon Go where everything is global. I think that if Niantic were to, I wish Niantic completely reverted remote raid passes, reverted remote raid passes, adds wonder trading, adds features that cater to the global community. Why do I believe this? Because I think that this will just get more players playing Pokemon Go. The more people playing Pokemon Go, the more people you might meet when you do naturally go outside who are playing, but the more money the game is going to make, the more support the game can have, because the more money the game makes, the more money they can put into the game. And overall, I just want the most amount of people to be able to enjoy this game. And by having limited accessibility features like unlimited remote raids, people who are in rural towns, people who are disabled, these people cannot access Pokemon Go. They cannot enjoy it. However, Niantic doesn't believe in this. Niantic doesn't believe in this vision. So let's switch our mindset and let's think about in the concept of Niantic with their motto, make interactions in the real world, something like that. And in this situation, I do believe there is a balance. I do believe that Niantic has finally recognized that you can have a global and a local community at the same time. I don't think you can have, I think a global community can live, but then the local will die. But then I do think a local community can live and the global will die. But I do believe there's a balance in the middle. There's a balance where you have features for the global players and features for the local players. How does this balance work? I think Niantic is doing this balance pretty well right now, and that's the way, and something I've talked about the longest time, is incentivize the local players. If you're gonna put in extra effort to do something, you should be compensated correctly. And I do think Niantic does this in a good way, and they just added the features where if you do an in-person Gigantamax or Dynamax battle, you get more XP and more Premier Balls. If you go to a local raid, you get more XL Candy, more Premier Balls. You get a damage bonus from being in person. You can get rare XL Candy dropping from an in-person raid. As long as Niantic continues to incentivize in-person play while not punishing global players, the game can live and can continue to grow with both communities. So as long as they don't punish players who do not go in person, I think this is amazing. And I honestly, this is what I'm gonna say. I even think the game could survive in some sort of situation like this where if, let's talk about this situation. Niantic unlimited remote, unlimits remote raids, you can do unlimited, and they revert the prices. But then they also give insane bonuses for doing an in-person raid. You get more XL Candy. You get a guaranteed rare XL Candy every time you do an in-person raid. You get more Premier Balls, way more Premier Balls. You get maybe shiny boosts for doing a raid in person. I think that both communities would still thrive. People would still come out to the local communities and the local meetups because you just have the most insane Pokemon Go experience because you're getting all these bonuses. But then people would still play from home and enjoy the game from home because that's just like the easiest way to do that, or the way that they can do it at that time. You know, they have to put the kid to bed so they can go ahead. They can only play from home. So I think that is the best way for Niantic to go forward, is to continue to incentivize people to play in person, but don't punish people who don't play in person. I think this is going in the right direction. Will Niantic ever completely unlimit remote raids? I don't really know if they will. I do think there is still the issue of the rarity. Like, that is something that will always be probably on Niantic's mind, and the fact that, like, yes, you can incentivize people to play in person, but at the end of the day, the remote players are still getting the Pokemon, they're still catching the Pokemon, and it's still ruining the rarity of that Pokemon by making it a lot easier to do. So overall, I think that's great. Remote trades, I think, can be fun. However, I do think they should be limited. So if they do implement remote trades, 1 to 2 a day, I think it's perfect. I don't think there's a lot of people here who would complain with the fact that you can only do 1 to 2 remote trades a day, because I think the only reason we really want remote trades is so that we can do lucky trades with our global friends and interact with our global community in that way. I think you can have both communities, but you just need to feed them both. And you need to just incentivize the in-person play while not punishing the global play. Actually, I think it was YAP from Couples of Gaming gave a really, really good concept, a good idea, but remote raids are expensive right now, but what if Niantic were to create boxes where you could get huge discount deals on remote raids for the more you buy? Let's say you buy 1 remote pass, it's expensive. You buy 3, it's expensive. You buy 5, it gets closer to the price of a in-person pass. Or you buy 10 and you're getting them for the same price as in-person passes. This will obviously incentivize people to spend money, because that's what Niantic wants to do, while still giving a good discount on remote raids. People are just gonna have to save up more money. They're gonna have to use more gym coins and all that stuff. So I think that's a good medium ground on how to do that. I also think, personally, in my opinion, the best situation would be Niantic decrease the remote raid pass price back to the original price, but then take your in-person passes and decrease their price. So an in-person pass, 50 Pokecoins. A remote pass, 100 Pokecoins. So you're still spending more on a remote raid versus an in-person. And again, it's incentivizing people to go in person. There's a huge incentive to being in person because of the fact that the passes are just so cheap. But don't know if they'll ever do that. For now, I think a Couple of Gaming's idea there to make huge discount bundles, would be the best idea. So anyway, really excited about these changes. I want to hear what you guys think about these changes. Watch these other 2 videos on screen if you enjoyed this one. And comment below. I always read every comment on the YAP sessions. I love the discussions that happen. Remember to be respectful in the comments and don't hate on anybody's opinion, because you want to just try to keep an open mind. I think it's very important as humans to just keep an open mind and always try to see the other person's perspective. You don't have to agree with the other person's perspective, but still, you can't sit here and say that there's 0 cons to nerfing, to adding unlimited remote raids because that's just like a delusional perspective. Everything has a pro and a con. You always give and take. That's just kind of how life works. When something goes, something comes. Anyway, watch the video on the screen. Enjoy it. Let me know if you enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll catch you guys all next Friday with another YAP session. Peace.